When you come into the room, when you guys start arriving on Sunday, do you feel something when you come in?
Yes.
And then as people, more and more people come, do you feel the energy starting to build?
Yes.
Yes. That is consciousness. Last week we talked about the individual consciousness, how we learn, how we apply, how we act in order to grow our consciousness. What you feel here is a group consciousness. Each individual that comes through the doors comes in open to know God, and they're coming in bringing their spiritual A game. Most of us come in ready to rock, wanting our spirit to be foremost. We don't come in dragging our stuff to show everybody what's going on. We come in quickened and wanting our spirit to be the lead. And because of that, all of our spirits start doing this beautiful dance together. And then the energy grows, and it gets brighter and brighter. I've shared with you many times, I don't often get to pull in, unless I'm late, where everyone is already here. And the energy is amazing. When I pull in and everyone's waiting, it's just gorgeous. And that's group consciousness. And we've all been to other arenas where we've experienced group consciousness, where the collective energy or focus may not be comfortable, or it may not necessarily resonate with us. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? If you've ever been to a sporting arena, like a big one, you go to watch the Braves play or football or something like that, the minute you go into the halls, do you not feel this beautiful excitement, consciousness? Everybody's walking in there with their sports head on and they're wanting their team to win. Do you see? And it creates this great consciousness of excitement. And so we have a different group experience when we go into that environment. That's the power of us coming together in these collective energies. So we have the individual, we have group, and then we have a greater collective. What we're going to talk to you about today is race consciousness. Race consciousness in totality is the entire vibration of all of mankind. Now it varies from culture to culture, like we have pockets of race consciousness within a city, race consciousness within a country or a continent, where the consciousness is defined by the predominant thoughts that these people hold, you know? But as a whole, as a world consciousness, what rises to the top are the thoughts that we all hold in agreement. And it's really not about being open to God, and it's really not about bringing our spiritual A game. It's more geared toward survival, getting our needs met, having power, meeting the expectations of the world around us, and continuing the journey that was started a long time ago. Race consciousness is about perpetuating what is. Have you felt that? When we get into the whole shift of the whole world? A lot of us, when we're on that journey, realize that the race consciousness that we're experiencing does not fit us. There comes a time when we feel like we need to do something that is outside of perhaps the expectations of our community, of our world. So we come to that point where we have to make a decision. You know, are we going to experience our individual consciousness in a different way? Or are we going to somehow allow our existence to continue to resonate with the race consciousness around us? So I've invited our two newest ministers of healing to come and share with you a moment or two in their lives when they felt that they had to step out in order to continue, where they were faced with looking at what race consciousness was bringing them, and they had to make a decision. So Robbie Hunt and Kesha Lindsay are our two newest ministers of healing. So we're going to kick it off with Miss Robbie Hunt.
I'm sure that I can speak for Kesha on this when I say thank you all for being here. It really means a lot to us that you're here and that you share this moment with us. It's important to us. It's a part of our journey that we've worked a long time for. and proud to come to this place. So thank you. When Cindy told Kesha and I that our topic as our presentation to you as ministers of healing would be about race consciousness, I thought to myself, yes. Because when Cindy said race consciousness, I thought surely she was talking about NASCAR. I mean, race consciousness. You know, you say the word race to me, and I'm thinking checkered flag and victory lane. But when you think about it, why wouldn't I? My daddy builds stock car racing engines. My entire childhood is filled with memories of going to the racetrack every weekend. And of my dad's first machine shop, which was an old rundown chicken house. And him working until 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure that someone's blown motor was fixed so that they could take it to the racetrack later that night. And they're all wonderful, great memories. So, say the word race, and that's where I go. Now, in 2007 was when I actually learned about the real race consciousness. And it was when I was taking the metaphysics classes here at IQ. And the concept of race consciousness was brought to me. The idea of agreed upon truths or beliefs that a majority of people hold. And so I understood that at this conscious level. But I will admit to you that I sat there and I thought, yeah, but that's for people who are weak-minded. Or they have no self-confidence. Or they're just not very strong. Oh, boy, was I wrong. Because in 2009, on a fateful road trip back home to Atlanta from Pennsylvania, I was shown how deeply engrossed I was in race consciousness. The race consciousness of my culture and of a religion that I thought that I had left behind me. I was shown that if I was going to unhook from race consciousness, I was going to have to make a conscious effort to do it. That it would mean taking a look at my thoughts and my feelings, and taking a look at beliefs that I had that I didn't even know why I believed them. And let me tell you, that drive back was intense. Let me set the scene for you. This involved two very dear teachers of mine who are not affiliated with us here at IQ. And there were several of us on this trip coming back to Atlanta, and we had 2 cars. One teacher went in one car, one teacher came with me. As we are driving, the teacher that was in my car began to talk to me about my, quote, white woman culture. Now, he did not mean this as an insult to me as a woman, nor to an insult to me as a white woman. What he was trying to point out was that I was so immersed in my own culture that I wasn't seeing the beauty and the wisdom or the opportunity that lies in all these other cultures. If I could sum it up, I think what he said to me is that, you know, Robbie, just because you go eat at a Chinese restaurant does not mean that you understand Chinese culture. He was not calling me racist or prejudiced or biased because he knew my heart. He knew that wasn't me. He even told me, Robbie, you're very, very aware of other cultures, but you're aware of it up here. You need to bring it here in your heart. You need to bring it here in what you do in your everyday life. That's what he was trying to show me. What he showed me was for something to be truly a part of you, you got to think it, you got to feel it, and you got to live it. Now, as he was teaching me these things, we were driving back on interstate that I was not familiar with. It was rainy. It was gloomy. There was a lot of cars on the road. And I am gripping that steering wheel and I am crying. And when I think back on that moment, I now realize how guided by Spirit it was. Because here's the part of the story that you don't know. The teacher that was with me is legally blind. There was no one else who could drive that car. I had to drive the car. And I was crying so much that there's no way, when you think of it in its reality, that I could have driven that car. Spirit was driving that car. When we got home, I got to spend a little bit of time with the other teacher who had been in the other car. And she reiterated much of the same thing. But this time, it hurt my pride. Made me mad. So, I went home and I decided that I needed to heal this wounded part of me. So I did what a lot of people do in that situation. I grabbed a cross-stitch project and sat down and got ready to cross-stitch.
That's what I did.
That's not what you do? But here, actually, is where the real lesson came. Where I finally got it. Where I got what race consciousness is. But what I also realized is how it seeps into things, even into things that we deem as harmless. I went and I got all these cross-stitch projects that I had, all these patterns and these kits, and I laid them out in front of me to decide which one I was going to do. And I had hundreds of dollars of them there, 30 or 40 of them at least. And then I looked at them. And I realized I didn't like a one of them. I looked at those and I realized that it looked like the prints and the patterns that I'd seen in every house I'd been in when I grew up. A lot of them I would describe as country cute. Not that there's anything wrong with country cute. But in all those patterns and kits laid out in front of me was now this montage of my childhood. And I looked at it and I realized that there was not one thing that I wanted to cross-stitch. And that everything there I had bought out of habit, cultural conditioning, and most of all, without even thinking. I will forever be grateful to these two individuals for this lesson and for the time that they took to get that into my head. I say these words with intention when I say to you, it literally changed my life. Now, I still cross-stitch, but I have very few patterns. The ones that I do have, they fill my heart with this beauty and this joy that I can't even describe. I know the joy that I'm going to feel when I hold that needlework in my hands and I work on it. I know exactly the joy that I'm going to feel when it's done and it's framed and it's on the wall. And I know now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, where that joy is coming from. That joy is coming from, not my culture, but it's coming from the power of the freedom of my choice. And that, brothers and sisters, that's the power of unhooking yourself from race consciousness. The gift of unfettered and limitless choice. So, if your choice is cross-stitching, and you like country cute, I got a bunch of patterns that are looking for a home. As for NASCAR, still love it. Still part of my culture. But now, it is a choice that I make consciously. So I can say to you, I love my race consciousness. Thank you, and I hope that you found something of value in these words. And now, to share her experience is my dear sister on this path, Kesha Lindsay.
Thank you, Robbie. I too had a moment of glee when Cindy mentioned to us that we were going to be talking about stepping out of race consciousness. Not so much for NASCAR, but because when I look back at my life and my defining moments and choices, I realized that I have lived outside of race consciousness. And probably the greatest proof is to talk to my friends and family. For instance, one year, my sophomore year of high school, my Russian teacher said, blah, 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 Middlebury College, the best in the country for Russian, blah, blah, blah. That was all that I heard, and that was all that I needed, because in that moment, I decided that's where I was going to go to college. So I set my sights on Middlebury. For those of you who don't know, Middlebury is a small, private, translation expensive, liberal arts college in the Northeast. My mom, on the other hand, had wanted me to go to Georgetown, not for the academics and the prestige, but because she wanted me to date one of the basketball players. It was her dream and idea that I would date a basketball player and bring home their coach, her idol, John Thompson. A mother's love and a mother's faith, because at the time I was a certifiable nerd, so I knew that was not going to happen. And truthfully, I knew that going to Georgetown wasn't going to be the best choice for me because, academically, because there were just too many cultural distractions. And I knew with my propensity for skipping school as it was, I wasn't going to do well in that environment. So it was on to Middlebury for me. I applied to one school, early decision, sight unseen. And when everybody in my world, my mom, my friends, my teachers, guidance counselors, everybody heard that, they were like, well, shouldn't you have a backup? Shouldn't you make a second choice? Kesha, do you know you're from Florida? Have you ever seen snow? Have you ever lived in snow? And I'm like, no. Have you made plans to go to the campus? Have you talked to any of the students there? I was always cheerful. No, I'm going to Middlebury. I'm not worried about it. It's going to be great. And they just look at me, shaking their heads, just kind of wondering, what is she going to do? At the time, though, I mean, I was absolutely confident and sure of my decision. I was also 17, so I knew for sure what I was doing. Looking back on it now, though, I can see that saying no to their questions was my way of saying yes to my desires. I was maintaining my focus in the face of their fears, conventional wisdom, and expectations. Then I spent years studying Russian to the point where I speak fluently, with the same passion, humor, and even sometimes eloquence that you've come to know of me in English. And everybody in my world would ask, so are you studying Russian so intently to become a translator? And for me, there would be this disdainful, no. I don't want to translate somebody else's thoughts. I have my own ideas. And they would walk away, shaking their heads. What is this girl doing? So I took my Russian skills and studied jewelry making at a design house in Bishkek. Because the whole reason I ended up studying Russian was because when I was 13, I read a book about Fabergé. And to the 13-year-old mind, if I wanted to become the best jeweler in the world, I needed to speak Russian. So that's kind of how I got to that point. When I told my family I was a jeweler, they were impressed. And I thought, yes, because it's nice when you hear your community validate your choices. And it was really one of the first times they finally had. But then they would ask, so if I see something in a catalog that I want, I can bring it to you and you can make it for me for cheaper? And there would be me with my disdainful, no. If you see something in a catalog and you want it, get it from them. If you want something from me, it's going to be unique and special. I'm not interested in copying somebody else's ideas. It was a long time before any of my family bought my jewelry. But they did, and they love it. They love it now. But now what I can see is that what was called a fierce independence or a strong sense of individuality was really my way of declaring to myself, my world, and my spirit that I was willing to walk the unknown path of the road less traveled. It didn't help my cause when I moved from metalsmithing to beadwork. Metalsmithing is somehow seen as the more serious endeavor, whereas beadwork is considered somehow less than. But then I did get a large measure of validation when my mom looked at my portfolio, because her response was, wow. I'm going to stop telling people you play with beads. Your work is serious and it's sophisticated. I think that was one of the first times I really felt like they get it. She got it and it was okay. And I remember like walking away thinking, finally. Because even though I was firm when I had made my choices, there were definitely times when I had to wonder if I was doing the right thing, if I was making the right choices. There were times when I didn't know how these seemingly random decisions were going to knit themselves together to create this fabulous career that I had envisioned for myself and what my family and friends had expected of me. And there were definitely times when I would look, get the alumni magazine and hear what my classmates are doing and feel like, well, I don't feel as successful as I think they are. And when is that going to happen for me? And so then, with my proficiency in jewelry making, my fluency in Russian, and six-figure education, did I get a real job when I moved back to the States from living overseas? No. No, I did not. I really stepped out of race consciousness when I read my first Catherine Ponder book, because it was at that time I decided to put aside conventional and commercial ideas and metrics of success and instead rebuild my life from the ground up on an absolute faith in God and the desires of my heart. I felt like that would be the path to true and lasting success that thus far had eluded me, despite my many accomplishments. For those of you who remember me when I first started coming to InterQuest, I was an incredibly wobbly little thing. Fearful and fretful. It was always, what am I going to do now? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay my rent? When is it going to get better? But look at me now. Yay. Cindy once called me the one who makes it happen. Now I stand tall and confident because God is my greater partner, and I know that God has my back. And with God as my guide and my angels at my side, I can confidently walk the path of the unknown. And I think, well, besides, if God is with me, who can be against me? And we all know that all things work together for good for the one who loves God and who is called according to his purpose. And I have to say that probably the best thing about having matured spiritually and having finally become comfortable with stepping out of race consciousness is that the nagging questions of comparison and the incessant need for outer validation have all but disappeared. And I am fine with that. Thank God. I'll turn it back over to Cindy.
Wonderful stories, yes? What maybe these girls don't even realize, maybe we tend to forget, every time we take a step and we move into that expression of the realized self, which is what they do when they step out of race consciousness, they're actually moving into another group consciousness. And that's a group consciousness that may not even be visible to them. There are so many beings of light living on the earth plane today that have done just what you guys did, that have stepped up and out, and that have lived the life of their own heart. And when you make that step, you become one with them. And that fabric begins to knit around you. Whether you ever meet one in the flesh, or whether you're aware of their presence, or the beings of light that support us in that evolution, you're now in that group consciousness. And that group consciousness can support you and help you grow to an even greater expression of who you are. Every individual on this earth plane chooses where they live, but each one of us affects the whole as well. So every thought of love and independence and light that we hold not only aligns us with a specific group of like energy, but that begins to impinge upon the vibration of the race of mankind. How much of a contribution do we make when we choose the heart and when we choose the heart journey? Can you see that? As they were speaking, could you remember times when you asserted? Mm-hmm. And it's really fun to hear someone tell their stories because it seems so easy for them. Mm-hmm. But we know in those moments when we made that choice, we were walking right through a mountain. We were having a tunnel or climb or do something to sustain our energy as we were breaking free from the expectations of the world around us. It's lovely to hear the stories, and it's easy when you're on the other side. But as you're making those choices and those journeys, it does take that focused awareness. So we bless all the people in our world that bring us the lessons, all the opportunities that allow us to see. But as people learning to grow consciousness, individually and collectively, following your heart is really the only way to break free from the expectations of the world. So, in race consciousness, there is tradition, there is expectation, and there is a perceived sense of safety. Mm-hmm. And that perceived sense of safety is as safe as it's always been, which is how safe? Not so much. As you move into your consciousness, we can choose to live in love, truth, and expansion. And then we bring greater love, truth, and expansion to the whole, to the race. Isn't that wonderful? Mm-hmm. And the more one person does step out, actually it makes it easier for those to follow, others to follow. All right, so let's go within and just anchor this. I want you just to take a breath and feel that beautiful love of God all around you. God, we ask that your presence just enfold each one in a beautiful energy. And I want you to feel the safety. But in your mind, let your vision just go to your heart. And I want you to start just imagining that you can begin to see with the eyes of truth. I want you to imagine in front of you just a vision. Imagine you can see the earth. And all around the earth is a vibration of race consciousness of today. And just look at it, look at the energy moving, look at what it is. Can you see it? Can you feel it? And now I want you to feel within your heart. Feel within your heart your desire to be you. To be uniquely you. To be love, truth, light. And feel that spark within you begin to ignite. And now look at that picture of the earth. And I want you to begin to see all the other lights that are doing everything you're doing, desiring to awaken. And you should be able to see lights coming on all throughout the race consciousness of Earth. Other beings beginning to shine, other beings responding to the vibration you're holding in your heart. Can you see it? And we don't have to do anything but be love. We don't have to do anything but be spirit. And as we are, we quicken the whole. As I love in my heart, the world's love is amplified. As I am free in my heart to choose, the world is free to choose. I want you to feel that love now deep within. And we're going to send a blessing to our earth right now. We're going to take a breath and send love to a race consciousness of the planet. No matter where anyone is, no matter who they are, what their fears, their thoughts, we're sending them our love of God. And we're showing them our spiritual A-game. Send your love to that energy. And feel it becoming brighter. Father, Mother God, we lift this vision of the earth to you. We know that each person on this planet is your child, divine, divine by nature, our brother, our sister. And it is our prayer that they feel their own truth in a way that they need. And we surrender this entire world to you. And just let it go in your mind. And as it lifts up, just feel a beautiful love from Father, Mother, God engulfing you. You choose. You choose. Take a breath and just let your heart feel your energy filled now. And feel the peace. And we thank you, God. We love you so. We thank you for this opportunity to be that expression on this planet. And our hearts are full. And so it is. Yeah, God, you can open your eyes. Well, may you go forth today inspired to be the greatness that you are. Inspired to see what you're choosing for your next step. And even if it is familiar and from your past, it's still your current choice for how you're choosing to express.